Let's check out how the Augmentation Evoker, the new spec hitting the game, is going to change the game. Let's see what this is all about.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack, back in to bring you our quick intro to Augmentation Evoker. This spec is giving massive buffs to allies, and while it's the first spec of its kind to be lumped into, let's say, support, it's important to talk about what kind of support that is.
The first cheerleader
it's
class.
Taking the role of a damage dealer. Augmentation is not going to throw any healers out of work. And so in this video, we're going to talk about its strengths, what it brings to the table, and get a bit of an introduction to how the rotation is going to be working.
Okay.
You are buffing your allies by 3 different fashions. Number 1, you are giving primary stat with Ebon Might. This is a 30-second cooldown, which gives
primary
about 12
stat
seconds
buff.
or so of buff duration of primary
For nearest
stat.
allies, so they don't pick anybody.
Your personal primary.
You're not picking anybody for this one. This one's going out to everyone in the
your
party.
Intellect. So the more geared that you are, the more you're buffing your allies.
Man, that's pretty badass,
This could
actually.
be a good spec to get fed a lot of gear at the
Endgame.
beginning
This
of
is a
an
good
expansion,
helicopter
or
dick
beginning of a raid tier, I should say.
moment here.
That said, you also need to make sure you're extending the duration of this Ebon Might to the next 30-second point or so. As a result, you are going to be using your Empower spells, your spenders for your essence, and a couple of large cooldowns to be able to extend the duration of Ebon Might onto your allies.
Damn.
And by doing so, you also are applying other buffs in the process. When you use your Empower spells, you activate your Mastery. Your Mastery is giving versatility to one ally, and the amount of versatility that you're giving is based off of your Mastery percentage. So if you have 14% Mastery, you give someone 14%.
Wow, so like so far, it really looks like the more geared, I mean, it makes sense, the more geared you are, the more damage you're going to help the raid do. Okay, that's fine. But a fully geared, blasting out big-dicked Evoker here is going to freaking be pulling massive buffs for the raid / party.
Your 2 Empower spells are Upheaval and Fire Breath. Upheaval can have cooldown reduction with your Spender, which is Eruption, and Eruption, which costs Essence, also extends the duration of Ebon Might. So you can have a very quick sort of format of using Ebon Might, using an Empower spell like Upheaval, which extends the duration of Ebon Might, then
keeping Ebon Might up
Eruption,
looks like a big
which
thing for
reduces
them.
the cooldown of Upheaval and extends the duration of Ebon Might. And so you have your builder spender, more or less, where you are generating essence.
That sounds like a fun
flame.
There's other shit in the game
Spending
like this.
it
That
on
sounds like a fun
Eruption
mechanic to
to
play with.
extend the duration of Ebon Might on yourself and for allies. These allies are preferring damage dealers, and they are proximity based. And when it comes to your Empower spells, they're also proximity based and damage dealers. But you can work on funneling these buffs into allies through your final buff, which is Prescience. This is a 3% crit buff, and it also replicates some of the damage or healing spells
what a fucking weird word. I couldn't say it. I couldn't figure out what it was. I kept trying to call it persistence. Prescience. Where does Blizzard get this shit from?
Placed on an ally. If you're
Just pull out
not
a
targeting
thesaurus
anybody,
and try to
it'll
figure out what
automatically
words to
prefer a
use?
damage dealer. But you can also focus and specifically mark who you'd like to give this buff to. So on an 11-second cooldown, about
Give it to the
22,
biggest dick in the
23-second
party.
duration,
That's obvious
you can
one.
maintain almost full uptime on
Make
2
his dick
targets
bigger.
at a time.
Let
And
that
this
thing
can
swing.
give you Essence Burst, which makes you able to cast more Eruptions for more Ebon Might uptime.
Makes
And so
sense.
your general rotation is going to be, I was often using Prescience first to mark which
It's always
ally I wanted
improved
to give
my
a buff to, then hitting Ebon Might to buff that ally that I marked with Prescience, and 3 other damage dealers, spending my Upheaval to be able to get it on cooldown, spending my Essence with Eruption, and then often I think it would be better, we'll have to see, to be using Fire Breath early so that both of my Empower spells are on cooldown, but also they're both getting used
Burst
quickly
buffing,
and early on
that's what they're
pull
doing?
when other people are also popping all
opener?
their major cooldowns.
This is such an
Because
odd
again,
spec for the
your
game.
damage, your actual personal damage, is going to be pretty low, but the focus is going to be on augmenting and buffing your allies around you.
feel bad for
I don't know if
covering
they've
his
given
face. They should've
exact
just moved
numbers
like
for
that.
what
There
they
you go.
want, but it could be something around the lines of like 20 or 30% of your overall damage would be personal, whereas the 60, 70 plus percentage could be augmented. We still have to be able to see what it's going to end up being like, but with specs being burstier and burstier than ever, there's a high chance that how you stack all of these buffs onto your allies is going to determine a lot of the value that you're going to be bringing to either a raid or a Mythic Plus group. When you're in a Mythic Plus group, you can have
Nice.
almost 100% uptime when it comes to things like Ebb and Might, because there's just natural downtime in between trash pulls, or there's not really much value in, say,
So they are like
refreshing Ebb and
burst
Might
buffing
on
for
a
boss
40
fights and shit.
second
Like
pull,
they have a legit
because
opener
you'll
and
have that
everything.
30 seconds of duration. Ebb and Might will come back, and then you're going to be able to choose whether you activate
So they
it again
burst
if
buff
you're chain pulling,
while the
or
others are
whether you
bursting.
just hold it, regen more essence.
It's a triple burst, triple come, triple shot, all at once on a pull. That's pretty cool.
And then go into the next pull with full buffs onto your allies.
This
There's a
class
passive
can't
ability
be
called
low
Close
DPS
as
kicked.
Clutchmates, which offers a
Just
40%
say I was
increase
buffing.
in value to Ebb and Might and Breath of Eons.
Well, this
Breath of
class's DPS is going to depend a lot on how good the other DPS are in the party, right? Because we already read that 70% of their DPS is going to come from other DPS, right? Only 30% of their DPS is coming specifically from themselves. So the bigger dick the rest of the party is, the better their DPS will be. Tundra Freeze, what is up? I wonder how that's going to show up on a damage meter, though. It won't, probably. They'll just probably always be low, and it'll be tough to figure out what the fuck if they're doing things right or not.
Also can be talented to include some shield value. There's a little bit of just like side utility for like
What a cool
defenses that you
excuse.
can
Pretty
give
s-
to allies. Small
pretty soon
like
some
rallying
details will
cry
come out,
effect that you're gonna be
with
having
buff
with like,
stats.
the
Yeah,
black
maybe.
attenuation or attunement, which is going to give health increases to your allies when you activate Obsidian Scales. There's a few different
Obsidian
things you
Scale,
have
that's
from
gonna be a
side
nice one for
utility,
tanks.
but you are definitely not in a position where you are just replacing any sort of healer. In a Mythic Plus environment, this could be a really good catalyst for chesting high dungeons if the damage contribution, the primary stat contribution, is increased enough to make up for replacing a full DPSer with an Augmentation Evoker. So it would be a tank, Augmenter, 2 DPS, and then a healer. That would make up your potential composition.
Yeah, I feel like I said, the 2 DPS are going to have to be pretty good. Because a lot of the party's damage is going to be dependent on how good those 2 DPS are. Because not Devastation. This Evoker's DPS is going to depend on them.
If that works out,
If their
the
DPS is
closest
good,
Clutchmate's
it's gonna
passive
make the
is tuned correctly.
party
You
unreal.
could easily do that, and it could be
If
a
it's bad,
massive
it's gonna hinder
catalyst
them.
for Augmenters being brought into the highest keys possible, because the defensives that they bring to the team are huge. If their damage is not going to be too low for its contribution to your allies, you're not missing out on too much damage. It would be enough to be able to kill off major bosses, kill off high trash packs easily. That could be a huge catalyst. And they bring a little bit of side-off
WoW's
healing.
first bard, yeah,
a lot
basically.
of different damage reduction tools through their passives. They have their own cheat death, and they are just extraordinarily tanky. In a raid environment, I think this is going to change everything no matter what.
Yeah, for sure.
There's still more tuning, more changes that can happen, of course, but just the way that
It's probably gonna be
Augmentation's
broken at
blueprint
first.
is put forth, it's that you're never going to get 100% uptime onto Ebb and Might. Usually, you're going to get like 80 to 90% uptime onto something like Ebb and
If
Might.
only they didn't have
As
to
a
be a
result,
dragon.
specs that are very bursty and doing most of their
Look, if you hate playing Dragthier, if you're not into the scaly, furry, Moonguard sex cult that Dragthier are, then you could probably wait. I would guess that actually, I take all this back. Now that I think about it, a lot of these abilities, like the way they fly and blow their breath and shit, Evoker is never going to be a spec that goes anywhere else but Dragthier. So either you get over your hatred for these guys, or you just never play Evoker.
damage in their
'Cause it can't
cooldown
work, like,
windows
physically,
are going to
their abilities will
almost
not work with other
always
races.
have a full uptime of Evan Might during these damage windows. And you can stack Prescience.
I was going to
which is
say maybe
Critical
they
Strike,
teach
and
other
your
races of Azeroth on how to be evokers, but it doesn't make sense because they don't have wings and shit, so it won't work.
versatility buff, which is
Or
going
fire-breathing
to give
mouths.
preference to your Prescience target by making sure that the burstiest specs in the game have all of the crit, burst, and primary stat they possibly can have. And I'm sure Sims, raid bots, and all these things are already at work finding out who benefits the most from these, which could also
Don't buff
make
the
it so that
warlocks.
certain
Fuck
specs
warlocks.
in the game are way more valued than others, potentially pushing out certain damage dealers because they
They're
don't
already too good.
benefit enough from certain secondary stats, which is a horrifying idea. But just naturally, as you're going to see the world first guilds, the specs that they choose in the game trickle down into the general population. I think
Just
that's
gotta learn how to fly.
absolutely possible to be able to see going forward when Augmentation gets released, because there's
Easy,
also
easy.
a
They
pretty
show
decent
faded
chance
wings.
that Augmentation is
They
going
need
to
to
be
jump.
extremely highly tuned when it comes
I
out.
don't
As
know.
a decent example, if you look at the damage profiles of like an
their
Unholy
abilities
DK
seem very
versus the damage profile
very tied to the fact to their race. So I think it'd be kind of janky if they did it.
of a
They
rogue,
could do it, of course,
where a
but I
rogue
just
may
think it'd
have
be
very
kind of
steady
janky.
damage regardless of its cooldowns, and
But
then
hey,
an Unholy
when this patch goes live, you're going to be able to make Light Forge Draenei Warlocks. So I guess jankiness doesn't matter to Blizzard anymore.
DK is incredibly bursty. Absent the idea, without even thinking about the benefit of primary stat, crit, or burst for each of these individual specs, if you're guaranteeing 100% uptime with something like Augmentation Evoker during a cooldown window that lasts 30 to 40 seconds, and you're getting 80, 85% uptime or something like that, maybe a little more,
pros maybe.
for a spec that's constantly dealing damage, it's just naturally going to benefit the burstier spec that's in the game. As a result, it could start pushing away certain DPS specs that are not benefiting enough from the Augmentation Evoker. That being said, I think at most you would probably see 2 Augmentation Evokers in a hardcore raiding
2?
environment, unless buffing
What?
other
2 Augmentation? Was he saying in a raid or in a party of 5? There's no way in a party of 5.
unless buffing other augmentation hardcore raiding environment, unless
Okay,
buffing
hardcore rating. Okay, I was gonna say, what are you gonna do with 2? They're just gonna circle jerk each other and infinite buffing each other's what? That is buffing each other's buffs. That sounds wild. I actually kind of want to see like what a 3 Devastation Evoker party would look like. Just buffing the shit out of the tank and just creating a godly tank. Holy crap, that'd be cool. Dude, I want to do that now. I actually want to do that. I want to take my blood DK, take 3 Devastation Evokers with me, or 3 Augmentation Evokers and a healer, and just have them all focus buff me, and create a godlike Samiccus blood DK. Yes. Yes, let's do it.
other augmentation evokers isn't giving you too much of a downside. In that case,
Is it a
maybe
new
you start
season
seeing
then?
more.
No,
It
no,
could
it's not
just
a
be
new
so
season.
broken on release
This is a .5
that you just see tons of them
patch, not a
all over the
season.
place in the best guilds in the world. But I
Still
think in
same
a
season.
more balanced environment,
What's up, Kale
I
Sauce?
think you would very likely just see 2 of the augmentation evokers
At least get a good
in
tank that
hardcore
does
rating,
DPS?
and what you're
Okay.
able to do is have
Okay,
your
Jake.
augmentation evoker hover into melee range onto a stacked marker before everybody pops cooldowns.
Yeah, get a
cast Ebon
priest
Might
healer.
in there,
Oh my god, yeah.
buff 4 nearby melee players, and
be
then
wild.
hoof it out or wing it out to range once again to be able to be in the proper position for mechanics or whatever is needed, and then be maintaining that duration of buffs onto the melee players while you're sitting out casting at range.
I forgot they're like
At the same
mid-range
time
too.
that
It's
melee,
so
the
weird.
melee evoker is out there buffing those guys. You could have a ranged evoker
200k
doing the same
DPS
thing
tank.
with a stack location for,
I mean, buff the
for
shit.
ranged
Tri-
targets
triple
right
buff,
before
you
they
never
pop
know.
their cooldowns.
300k.
All you'd really have to do is make sure you're aligning when everyone is popping cooldowns or about to pop cooldowns so that they get the buff on them. They can take whatever time that they need to set up. Like I know, for example,
This slime mob has to be Blizzard's favorite mob in the game ever. This is the blight. It's supposed to be the blight of Galakron. It's just another fucking slime mob. I feel like this is one of the most used assets in the game ever.
need to set up. Like I know, for
fucking
example,
slime boy.
Unholy DK and Demo Warlock take a few seconds to be able to like build resources or something before they actually pop their cooldowns and before they want PI.
Or if they want it to be
And
blood,
so
they just
that's
change
another
the color
example
red.
that because the buff duration of Ebon Might
Want it to become,
can
you
very
know what to do
easily
with it.
last 45 to 50 seconds pretty
Slimer
consistently on
come, yeah.
people, as long as they are going to be stacked in the right location for the refresh. It is very, very easy to make sure that they're having just about perfect uptime of this primary stat buff, of this crit strike buff, and
Yes.
of this verse buff, which is not going to be 100%, mind you, but be able to have this wonderful, wonderful uptime on all of these players and control
Keep your
who's
buffs
getting
up.
it
I mean, that's what
just
playing
by
this
putting
class is
down
gonna
a
be all
couple of
about.
different raid markers, and just by making sure that everybody knows when they need to be able to pop some of their cooldowns. Expect augmentation to change everything, and
It will.
going to be insanely OP.
Yeah.
So be sure to check it out. Be sure to check out the live stream. Be able to sub to the YouTube for more updates as Augmentation Evoker is still under development. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch y'all next time.
There it is. There it is. Gonna change the game. Most definitely. Gonna change the game in a weird way, in a first time way. So I'm interested to see where Devastation Evoker, or I keep calling him Devastation Evoker, Augmentation Evoker goes from here. Move myself back down. Put my sassy self right back here where I belong. Yeah, very cool. Interesting stuff. If you're playing Augmentation, more power to you. It's gonna be an interesting class to play for sure.